Hi, we're here with Dr. Lionel Orama, an engineer graduated from Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute, that's in New York.
Right.
We're going through a crisis which everybody knows about here in Puerto Rico, an economic crisis, and right now we have our case as far as the Power Authority is concerned, which is in bankruptcy court as well as the government. We have a judge looking at all the alternatives right now, and I know you're one of the engineers that has proposed making our system drift towards the solar power. But there is something very interesting that you focus on a lot, and it's a sustainable system.
Right.
And I think it's very important now that we talk about this, because the reason why we're in the economic crisis is because we did not design our life and our business and our government in a sustainable way, and it's gotten out of hand. It's something that's happening all over. People are living above their means, and it's getting to a point where we can't finance our lives and our government and the lifestyle, and nobody's happy with it either. So I would like you to explain a little bit of this situation about being sustainable in energy terms, and how this would be a good solution, and how obviously we could use the solar. And why is it one of the most as a sustainable, versus what we have right now? Why is it sustainable? So where do we start?
Well, maybe defining sustainability. There's a lot of people talking about sustainability. Basically, it defines how do we use our resources, not committing them, or committing them just enough not to destroy them in the future. So in the case of the energy system, the energy system in Puerto Rico is not a sustainable one for various reasons. The first one is that we are slaves of the fossil fuels to produce electricity in Puerto Rico. We don't have petroleum, oil, we don't have coal, we don't have natural gas, we don't even have radioactive mines. So what we have is sun, we have wind, we have water. Those are our resources, our native resources. So the first thing is that if we don't own the sources of energy, in this case oil, coal and natural gas, we are enslaved by those who sell those sources, by the market. Right. We are the market, and as we have been describing, we are in a fiscal crisis. We don't have the resources, enough money resources to continue buying external energy sources. So that's one reason. The other reason is that our system is based on consuming electricity. So here comes the idea of development of the system. The system will be developed every time we consume more. So for PREPA, for example, to earn more money, they have to generate more electricity. But for them to generate more electricity, we consumers have to consume more electricity. The thing is that if we go through, for example, the energy report that recently came available in Puerto Rico, the Energy Report 2015, we can see how the demand has been coming down in the last 10 years. We can also see how the consumption has been coming down. And there's a lot of conditions taking these variations in the load and in the consumption. One can say, well, from 2008 or so, the migration in Puerto Rico has been increasing. A lot of people is leaving the island. That's one point. Another point is that people are trying to save energy because it's costly, supposedly. So a lot of people are changing equipment, devices in their houses, air conditioning, they are changing refrigerators, etc., to consume less energy, changing the lights, the illumination in the house. So there is a combination of migration on one side, but there is that combines with people trying to consume less. So the basis of the business model for PREPA is coming down. So there is no way that system gets sustainability at certain point.
It's not going to survive.
It's not going to survive. So what we are envisioning, and we have been talking and studying this theme for about 15 to 20 years, is to create, how to create an energy system that is sustainable. Well, the first thing is that in my vision, and I have shared this vision with all the group experts, we need 4 columns or 4 legs for a table or kind of that. And those 4 legs start with the less consumption. Less consumption, conserving energy, that would be one leg, conservation. Another leg could be, once we have the idea, we have changed our minds to a conservation philosophy, then we can start working towards energy efficiency.
Which means?
This means that conservation is you don't use the electricity that is not going to do work. For example, if we leave this room, we turn everything off. That's conservation. Energy efficiency is, now we are here, we are using the room, but we are using more efficient lighting, we are using more efficient air conditioning. So we use less energy than, or we do the same work with less energy.
That would be like changing equipment,
changing devices in the house. Okay. But conservation is turning our minds into conservation mode, so that we don't waste any energy that is not going to be used for our work. Okay, so we have 2 legs. We need 2 more legs. The other leg, let's say it's demand response. Demand response is, when do I use my energy? For example, PREPA can tell you when it's most costly for them to produce energy. Usually it's more costly during the days because of the markets. So for PREPA, it's more costly to produce energy during the days than during the nights. So if the system is intelligent enough to send me a bit or a message that the cost of electricity is coming down, the consumer can take the decision, okay, it's time to wash clothes, to dry clothes, to cook. It's time to go to sleep. And it's kind of demand response. Demand response can be made by the people because they are accustomed to it, or it can be programming controls. So if the system is intelligent, that's what what an intelligent system is called. If the system is intelligent enough, the system in my house will know when the cost of electricity is coming down and start bringing on devices that will be working. So, you know, it's a combination of technology and a social component through it.
There's also has to be a will for people to cooperate.
Definitely.
Because we have a fixed rate right now for any hour of the day. Right. The kilowatts are the same.
The only thing that PREPA has is a time of use tariff only for industrial customers, but not for the residential customer or the commercial, the business. So we have 3 legs there, and then comes renewables. Renewables in Puerto Rico are the only way, because that's the energy source that we have. We have sun, we have water, and we have wind. So we have to gear to a system that works only with renewable energy. And obviously, as Agustin have said, it cannot come in 2 or 3 days. It's a transition that we have to create. That's the energy transition that we are working that we must work in Puerto Rico. If we don't create or transform our system to something like this, the system will collapse. PREPA will cease to exist, simply because people will start, in a couple of years, people will start to disconnect from PREPA. Because right now, we are not disconnected. We need the storage of energy to continue increasing the renewables. But once the storage technologies the cost in the storage technology come down to certain amount, people will start disconnecting from PREPA by renewables in their roofs with the storage in batteries or any other
thing that they can come up with.
So
and as a matter of fact, from what I've heard, from what I've been studying and everything, storage for small residences and businesses is much more feasible than PREPA having a big storage unit right now.
Well, that was the case a couple of years ago. But right now, the demand for storage globally is so high that the utility scale storage has been coming down since a couple of years ago, especially when the Fukushima disaster, Japan decided to bring down all the nuclear reactors, and they are investing in solar energy specifically. The second year of their huge investment in solar energy, they noticed that the system was
not
unstable. So they started to invest in storage technology to maintain the stability of the system, and that has bring a lot of breakthroughs in storage technologies. And well, the signature company is Tesla, which is selling right now a set of batteries for $3,000, which is not cheap. Actually, that system is expensive, but it's a plug-and-play system. You put it in you put that thing in the wall, and you connect the cables, and you have storage. So the easiness to connect the batteries, it's the breakthrough of Tesla. But there's 25 companies already working in similar projects around the world, for residential, for commercial, and for utility scale storage. So there's a couple of studies that has been published recently that say that by 2020, for example, photovoltaics with batteries will be costing less than $4 per watt. It's when that number comes through, PREPA will lose a lot of clients.
Okay, we're talking about watts. So everybody talks about kilowatts.
Right.
So how many kilowatts is in a watt so that people can visualize?
Well, the typical family, the average consumption
Household
in Puerto Rico, the average household in Puerto Rico consumes around 450 kilowatt hour monthly. That's less than 20 kilowatts hour daily, which in the case of Puerto Rico is a system of more or less 5 kilowatt photovoltaics installed. So that's what we are talking about. We are talking about a system that in a couple of years will be costing 5 kilowatt times 4,000 per kilowatt is about $20,000. And with $20,000, this family can get disconnected from PREPA. Obviously, the families that will be doing this exercise will be the families that has the
purchasing
power or the way to finance the system. But even financing the system, we will be having the cost of around 11-12 cents per kilowatt hour, and to PREPA, the rates that PREPA are offering us right now is over 20 cents per kilowatt hour, and it's going to increase because of the decision of the control board. So we will be, in a couple of years, we will be paying about half the kilowatt hour from renewables with storage than what we pay PREPA right now.
So that's a very bad scene that we're looking at if we don't do something fast, because you're going to have people that can leave the island are leaving and those are usually well-educated people that can get a job right away.
Right.
Then the people that are becoming independent from the grid are people that are economically solvent enough to buy it or finance it.
Right.
So, and then who's left? People that live in condominiums that don't have the solar systems, or poor people that can't afford
the energy.
Right. And so who's going to be PREPA's clients, and who's going to pay
PREPA's client will be paying the energy so costly that the system will collapse.
They won't be able, because they'll be having disconnections all the time because they can't pay they won't be able to pay the bill in time.
It is a doomsday scenario for the electric energy system in the island. The thing is that there's a blank here. We need another thing. We call this the governance. And why I left the blank for governance over here, it is because we can do all these things and people will continue to disconnect if we don't take people into account from the ground up in the beginning of the transition. And that is a change in our culture. We are used for a government that says the people what to do. And we are saying here, we the people are telling the government what is that we want
them to do.
We want you to do this thing. And this thing is that with these 4 columns, with the governance of all of the people, all the constituents, clients, cooperatives, NGOs, business, industry, the government is a constituent too. With all the constituents sitting on the table, we are to design what we want. And we want a system that is made of microgrids, basically. That's the, if we try to envision, to see in the future, what we want is an island, Puerto Rican island, made of, a system made of multiple microgrids, interconnected ones to the others. That is the way that PREPA can survive. That the transmission and distribution system of PREPA can survive. And in that scenario, we will have a system strong enough to bring investors, to create industries, even Puerto Ricans creating small businesses and stuff. Because we need a system. So if every family disconnect from PREPA, there will be no electrical system in the island. So how can you support the industry and the business? We need a system. So the system should be composed of these small grids, interconnected one to the other.
Well, the other thing comes to my mind when I'm listening to you is the fact that they want government to be smaller.
Right.
But if you have a whole nation of people that need to be employed either by government or companies, right?
Right.
And they will still have to have services and help from the government. You can't reduce the government if the government needs to render service.
Right.
And you can't have people have small businesses and do their own small entrepreneur thing in their house or in their community if electricity costs are that expensive that they can't afford to have a business in the startup stage where they need to pay in advance before the business picks up.
Right.
So this model that you're showing me is also good for that.
Well, this model even creates a democratic system, electric system, in which, for example, you have your house close to mine and you are producing with the solar modules, you are producing energy, and I buy energy from you. But couple of houses along the road, I have storage, and I sell storage. So that's the concept of the prosumer. I produce something and negotiate with it. You produce something, another good, and negotiate with it. So even at that level,
it's fair. It's fair commerce. Everybody gets something out of what their efforts.
It's like the old systems where there were no money, no
barter.
Right. The people, I pay you trade. I pay you with my plátanos, and you pay me with your coconuts, or kind of, something like that, or the rice that you produce and stuff like that. So I produce storage, you produce electricity, and we share those commodities. That's maybe this looks right now like something from outer space, but that is the real future. Yeah, it's a dream, but that's the real future of a system in the future that will be stable, reliable,
healthy,
definitely. That's another point. We are used to buying sources of energy. In that scenario, we are not buying sources of energy. We have the source of energy. We buy equipment to handle the energy, but we have the source. So the money that we spend right now buying oil or buying natural gas or buying coal, with forgetting about the ashes and stuff like that, just buying these sources, that money will stay in the island, in the local economy. So it's the only way to transform our energy system is to create an energy transition into a system, an intelligent system like that.
I remember it was a year ago now, but last year in the month of August, I think it was, and then in September again, we had a whole week of no power twice. And people were going crazy because it was like the whole island was without power.
Right. That was the blackout in September last year.
And we had two of them. There was first one and then another one.
Right.
And everybody blamed the system, but actually it could happen with a hurricane. It's just that we didn't even have the hurricane.
Definitely.
And I was thinking, and I want you to tell me if that's a good idea that I had coming through my head or if it's not correct. That if we had solar panels in our homes, and of course I know we have to have some kind of energy reference, which would mean maybe just one battery, not have everything we need to store, but enough to have a reference for the system to work. Even though it was a limited amount of energy, everybody that had some solar panels would be able to work even at least half of the time that they would normally work. At least have a refrigerator with their food not going bad, maybe a few fans in the house and computers or at the offices, and the whole economy would have not suffered the way it suffered. And that's also something that in times when we're seeing climate change is causing really bad storms and we're having more and more problems now, would this also be something that would be an alternative to mitigate the loss of production and business and regular life activity going on every time we have a problem with the energy?
Well, there comes the concept of resiliency, right? This is another word that it's coming around lately. Resiliency is the way we manage our emergencies, right? If we can manage the emergency in an efficient way, fast and stuff, we have a higher resilient. We have a resilient community. If we break down at all, we have no resiliency. So, what about the system? This new system that is composed of many microgrids. The first thing is that comes to my mind, and we should do models about this to show the advantages, right, and the problems, but because everything has its problems has their way around, right? And we have to deal with that and come out to solutions. But we can see a system that is composed of multi-microgrids. Well, most of the hurricanes, for example, doesn't take the whole island in the same emergency. So many of those hurricanes goes either northeast or southwest or something like that. So in that case, since the system is composed of many microgrids, there will be a lot of the island that will still have energy during and after the emergency. So that creates a nice scenario, because we need energy to restore the rest of the system. That was one of the problems in the September blackout. Since it was a total blackout, the recovery of the system took almost 3 days, because we need energy to start moving these huge centralized power generators. If we have small distributed power generators, the recovery of the system may be much faster, much faster, because there's small machines, small systems, small networks, so we can recover faster than with the centralized system. One of the problems, we analyzed that and published a column in the Diálogo, the digital UPR newspaper. one of the things that happened during that emergency is that since we have a centralized system, and this centralized system has most of the generation in the southern area of the island, but most of the load on the northern area of the island. There are policies, not system organization, just policy organization that tries to maintain the northern area with power the most of the time they can. So maybe even in that scenario, if that policy was different, I will not going to say what kind of policy should be placed, but another policy. It is probable that the automatic system would be programmed differently. The automatic protection system would be programmed differently, so that just the area around the Aguirre plant would be locked out of the system, and not the whole system would be in the blackout. And that only decision, which someone took 20, 30 years ago, that only decision would have helped us restore the system in 6, 7, 8 hours instead of 3 days. So we have to rethink the whole energy system, because we are managing an electric energy system that it's been decided decades ago, when the realities of Puerto Rico were very different.
There wasn't even solar when the
There wasn't
system
even
designed.
solar. Only NASA used the solar panels, orbiting the Earth. So when those decisions came about, this technology, these ideas were not even in the minds of the people.
So the roofs of all of us would be like micro generators of power with the solar panels, kind of?
Yeah, basically that's what it is. You can imagine a community, a residential community of any kind, using their roofs as place to place the solar modules. Some of the houses or a centralized storage system. Every roof produces the energy that goes to the central, for example, to the central storing system, and then the energy is spread through the whole system. In that point, where the storage is based, maybe there is a connection or two connections to the external network.
To the grid, what
To
they
the
call
grid,
it.
right,
So,
to the grid.
so that if that community of houses produces more than they need, we
They
could
can sell.
have net metering to PREPA or
Right. They can, for example, have enough energy for the 20, 30, 300 houses, and they produce, sometimes at least in the year, they produce more energy. They store that energy, and they can sell the energy at any time to the grid. So it's a different way of thinking the system.
Is that communal, let's say communal storage for a small group of people? Is that more costly, efficient than each home with the battery storage system?
Eventually, I think it will. And eventually, I mean in 3 to 5 years. Because the push from governments and from even the companies right now around the world to invest in storage is so big that the utility scale storage will be the cost of these systems will be coming down fast. So I've read already a couple of articles talking about 2020, 2025 So
it's not that far away.
It's not that far away.
So, and then what it looks to me like you would do something similar that's being done now when somebody goes to evaluate your home and they take your 12 months of consumption and they take the highest month of consumption because you're going to need that at some time, and they want to make sure that you will be able to have enough energy. So let's say we have 20 homes and each one consumes 1,000 kilowatts, then it would be 20,000 kilowatts that you would need to have available. And then if you don't use it, that would be what would be sold out.
That would be
more or less the model for a group storage system.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, well.
That is also very good for the system, for the grid, because once you have storage, there is no problems with the variability of the sun, the variability of the wind or the water or whatever. There's no variability at all because you already have the energy stored to use it when you need that energy. So the problem that we have with renewables right now is that most of renewable systems in the island are grid connected directly. The sun produces the solar panel change the solar energy into electricity, pass it to the system, and that's it. There's no storage either in the house or in the system. So that energy has to be used
at the moment.
But once we have
and
storage,
that's why we always need some fossil there on the side.
That is right.
But
that
we
is
can't.
Right.
So in other words, this thing that they say that we will never be able to get rid of fossil because the renewables are not stable is not true.
That is not true.
When the storage comes in, the fossils are not needed anymore.
That's right. That's right.
So that's a good thing which nobody really thinks about, but that's something, I mean, and considering the damage that you do to the planet when you pull out these fossil fuels all the time,
right,
which creates other problems for us as human beings. No, what good is it for you to have good amount of electricity if you have to be in bed because you're sick?
You're sick, that's right.
So, I mean, this is something else that has a value that is not measured many times. The quality of life.
Big companies doesn't want the people to know this. That's the only reason.
So I can only find out with academics because they don't respond to the business.
Probably.
Well, thank you so much, Doctor. Is there anything else
much.
important that you think that we should tell people?
I think we have covered most of what we are envisioned for an energy future in Puerto Rico.
And before people can demand what they want to the government, they have to be educated. So that
is right.
Because they're being wrongly educated and brainwashed and manipulated.
Right. Right.
And they don't really know that this is an alternative in general terms.
Right. For that matter, the National Institute of Energy and Island Sustainability will have a symposium in October, and we will be talking about all of these things.
And that's an organization you belong to?
Yeah, that's I am the part of the steering committee of the institute. It's the institute is part of the University of Puerto Rico, and this institute works with over 80 of our professors, which are working not only academically but also in research related to energy and energy transitions.
So I'll be looking forward to be at the summit, and also let's see if we can broadcast it so that everybody that can come here, I think that'll be a wonderful idea. Well, thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.